Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty, aka Beth Bookish, and on today's Bookmas video, we're talking through my favourite graphic novels and manga for the year. I've had the best year I've ever had with manga and reading in general. I hit my 50 novel goal in November, and then now in December I've hit my 100 manga goal. At this current moment in time, I literally 5 minutes ago finished this. That was, I think, manga and graphic novel 103 or 104 for the year, so you know, done a very strong year. Obviously that is 104 things to sift through and decide which are going to be my favourite. I've sort of split this into categories of completed series, so series that I've finished and I loved, series that are in progress, and then sort of standalones. I'm going to kickstart with the series that I completed because I actually completed a fair few series this year. Admittedly, a lot of those are thanks to the library here in Australia, as well as Ren's manga library managed to help me complete a few things. All of the series that I completed I have on my best of. These aren't in any order, I have just stacked them how I saw them, and then I'll go through my list here at the end. But in terms of the ones physically in front of me, I'm kicking off with the Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. This is an extraordinarily cute and wholesome graphic novel featuring, as the name suggests, tea dragons. The primary focus doesn't tend to be on the tea dragons though, it does tend to focus on the people around them, but it's so wholesome and so cute. And basically these dragons, they form a bond with a person, and when they do, the tea leaves that grow on their horns and on their like heads, so like this one's got little flowers, this is little chamomile, those flowers and leaves become infused with the memories that have happened with that bond, that ensue during that bond. And it just really sweetly talked about memories and what it is to have those memories and what does it mean to actually forge those bonds. And it tells it through this little group that become the Society of Tea Dragons. It is so wholesome, it is so cute, the drawings are cute. I was very surprised because this is actually a middle grade series, and as we know, I don't typically read middle grade, but I did find it freaking adorable. The first one was my favourite, then the third, then the second, but all of them were incredible. All of them had really sweet messages, and two of them now have quotes in my reading journal that I will talk about when I do my end of year wrap up, flip through, whatever. But this one was so wholesome and so cute. Next up we have another series that I didn't expect to enjoy, ended up really enjoying, and most of them were, I think one or two were 3.5, the rest were all 4, 4.5 and 5 stars, and that is Sweat and Soap by Kintetsu Yamada. I started this last year. I was really shocked at how sweet and wholesome it was. I then, rereading the first one, was like, okay, he is actually a little bit more than I remembered him being, and I still had some issues with him throughout the series in regards to one aspect of him. But before I go into that, first of all, what is it about? This follows a couple who work at the same company. He is a product designer, she works in sales. She has a condition where she struggles with sweat and struggles to control her sweating, and as a result has made her very nervous, very self-conscious, and she's never really bonded with anyone. Then one day she gets excited while looking at a new product that's launching, which catches the attention of Kotaro, who is one of the product developers. And he has a very acute sense of smell, so when he smells her excitement, it inspires him to make a new product. They then enter into a relationship, and we follow that relationship. The thing I don't like about him is that sense of smell and his addiction to like her scent in particular. While it was fine, if it had been written a little less aggressively, it would have been fine, but it did come across that he was an addict at times and did show addictive behaviors, and they weren't very good. But thankfully, once the relationship starts to develop, she does get a little bit more self-confidence and does gain that ability to tell him that, hey, this isn't okay, and she starts to set boundaries. And then once they set boundaries, everything just goes so well. And certainly the last few volumes were all like 5 stars. It really was a beautiful series. It was wrapped up really, really well. It just is an entire complete series with a very wholesome romance and a great cast of additional characters with some great disability rep with regards to the parents of him. So yeah, definitely one that I think people should check out. The next one that I finished is one I think everybody should read regardless or not of whether they are a parent, and that is I Think Our Son is Gay by Okura. This follows a family of 2 sons and the parents. The mum suspects that her oldest son may be gay, and it's a story that the whole volumes, it focuses on her perspective rather than on the actual teenager going through a story. So this one's really, really good. Whether you are a parent or if you know any teenagers, or I just think everyone should read this because it had some great moments about acceptance and understanding and loving someone even if they don't necessarily have the same life as you kind of thing. There's also a little bit of conflict where throughout the book the dad was dropping these comments, and in the final book she kind of sits him down and is like, right, okay. And it was just so wonderful to watch how that unfolded and the revelations that came with it. We also see snippets from the younger brother where he starts to work out that maybe he himself isn't on a sexual spectrum and that he's questioning his own sexuality and whether he may be asexual. I don't feel it's spoilery to say this. We don't get like the big coming out story and we don't get that side of things, which I found a tiny bit disappointing. But then when I finished it, I actually realized I liked that it didn't do that and it left things open at the end, because the story is about the parents supporting and loving him no matter what he decides, and I feel like it didn't need that big coming out story to make it fully wonderful. And it was just so lovely, so wholesome. Again, a 5-star series. The first and last one were both 5 stars and every other one was 4 and 4.5. So again, fantastic series, and queer or not, parent or not, read. So good. Next up, we have the final one that I finished literally just before I started recording this video, and that is Orange by Ichigo Takano. This one I started in, I think, January, and then the library in Adelaide had this one, so I picked it up and I just finished it today. This follows a group of friends who meet up after a period of time that they haven't seen each other. They all meet up together and they start to reflect on a friend of theirs that died when they were in high school. It eventually is revealed that the friend committed suicide and that all of the remaining 5 have regrets about this and they wish that they could do something to change that outcome and make it so that he didn't die. Enter out going back into the past, and our heroine, Naho, she gets a strange letter through the post that is addressed to her by her. And inside is sort of like a rundown of certain dates saying, this thing happens, please make it not. And that unfolds a series of events where it's basically this group of friends trying to support their friend and stop him from reaching that point where he felt he had no other choice than to do what he did. Now, my biggest issue with this story is in the kind of message. It does deal with mental health very well. From Kakeru's side, it is very realistic and very true to thoughts that, as someone who has had suicidal thoughts in the past, I had very similar feelings and emotions to him. I have had similar regrets, especially regarding his mother also took her own life. Mine did not. However, I still have regrets because the weekend she passed, it was very unexpected. Nobody knew it was going to happen. I was due to go home that weekend and I chose to stay in at uni and go out with my friends instead. I had a lot of connection with Kakeru with that feeling of guilt and that I should have been there, and that maybe if I'd have been there I could have stopped it from happening. A lot of those feelings. So this one caught me a lot in the feels and those feelings of self-worth and things like that. But I didn't like how the kind of undertone of this story was that the only way he could be saved was because of his friends, and that it got to the point that the friends were sacrificing their own mental health and their own future and their own happiness. And it kind of was like saving him is the only thing that matters and no one else's happiness comes into it. And I didn't like that side of things, especially one of the characters. I loved him so much. but he was just constantly putting things aside and his own happiness, and because Kakeru liked the girl that he liked, he just stepped aside because he was like, look, we've got to keep Kakeru alive, it doesn't matter if I'm happy. And I was like, that is literally the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing, because all that tells me, like, to me, I'm like, all you've done is you're working so hard on Kakeru, you're letting somebody else slip, and what's to stop him from doing it? And then you're in that same cycle of regret again. So I didn't really like that side of the story where the happiness came at the cost of the friendship, of their own happiness. But I loved the art style in this. I loved the story it was trying to tell. It may have gone about it in a clunky way, and it may not always have been the best way of going about it, but it was still beautifully written, and the mental health rep is so true. If you have had mental health and depression, I would say to read it. Maybe don't then turn to your friends and be like, "Kat, you're now responsible for my own happiness," because that is one of the things they also leave out. It focuses less on helping him find his own happiness, and it relied more heavily on it was up to the friends to keep him happy. So, you know, read it with that openness and make sure that you have your own heart kind of protected. And if you are in a similar situation, you know, it's you and your friends and the people around you, but ultimately it's you that decides your fate. And I feel like that kind of got left out in this, but everything else was so good. It was so beautifully written. I cried multiple times. Definitely one I recommend. So those were the ones that I finished. I do have some that are also series that are ongoing, or I've only got access to a few of. The first of these is The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today. I read volumes 1 through to 6 earlier in the year, and being here at Ren's, I read 7 and 8. I love this series. It is so cute. You've got Yukichi, who from magic unknown, we don't know how he came to be this way, only that through sheer willpower, he ended up going from this regular sized kitten to this 8 foot tall, 7-8 foot tall cat that everyone around him seems to think is a person in a cat costume. Only his owner and a few trusted people in the family know that that is not the truth and that he is in fact a cat. Now, he was rescued as a kitten by Saku, and in return, because she is kind of hopeless, doesn't know how to look after herself, he became this giant cat in order to provide for her. So he does all the cooking, all the cleaning, all of that, and he seems to have a human-like intelligence to him. He can't talk or communicate like with vocal cords, but he has other ways that he communicates. And it has been such a fantastic story watching them two and their daily lives. I have felt like it is at the point now where it needs a little bit more plot-wise. It needs some drama or something happening to and have an actual discernible story start to develop, because it is starting to become a little too slice of lifey and a little stagnant. But I have hope that it is going to go in a better in that kind of direction soon. But it is still 5 stars pretty much across the board from me. So funny, so entertaining. It's chaotic and just an absolute joy. I know I'm always going to have a good time when I pick one of these books up. Another one on the I didn't expect to love this anywhere near as much as I did is Dinosaur Sanctuary. I binged all 6, is it 6 or 5 that Ren owns? 1, 2, 3, 5. All of the 5 volumes that Ren owns, I binged them in one single day. They were just so good, I could not put them down. This is a world where dinosaurs were discovered to have survived, and in this teeny tiny place on Earth, they've survived for millions of years, until 1946, when they were rediscovered by humans, and then through genetic engineering and other scientific-y methods, dinosaurs made a big resurgence. With it came a popularity of like dinosaur parks and zoos, and everyone had like dino mania. Only over time that has faded off. There was also an incident 15 years ago that resulted in a lot of people saying that actually what they did was wrong, they shouldn't have brought the dinosaurs back. It caused a lot of conflict, and now most dinosaur zoos have closed or are on the verge of closing. Enter our main character Suzume, who joins this dinosaur sanctuary that is one of the last ones surviving and is really struggling. She's got this really optimistic, positive outlook on things. She feels like the gap between dinosaurs and humans can still be bridged, and so she helps to inspire those around her and works with the zookeepers as a new zookeeper herself to start to bridge that gap. She has a lot of things to learn. She does have a little bit of naivety that throughout the series is addressed and she starts to work on. There is also an amazing cast of characters in here. The dinosaurs and the artwork is exquisite. And I mean, like, the character designs are fantastic. And I love every single character. But the dinosaurs as well are just so well done. So here's like one of the dinosaurs. They are so detailed, so well done, and incredibly well researched, because not only has the mangaka done their own research, he also brought in a scientist who has a PhD in paleontology and dinosaurs, who works as it says here, research consultant. And I looked this guy up and he has got multiple papers written on dinosaurs and fossils and things like that, and it is incredible that that level has gone in there. And they also have panels throughout where the research consultant writes little notes and explanations about why certain things were drawn, like, oh, I bet you weren't expecting dinosaurs to sit like this. Well, this is the evidence as to why, and here's the research that went into it. And it is just such an incredible series. I think every single one of these, apart from one so far, has had a 5-star. So yeah, this is going to go down as an all-time favourite. I just know it, but Volume 6 isn't yet out. One that is complete, I've only read the first one and there are only 2, but it's going to also become just a fun favourite, is The Yakuza's Bias. As someone who loves K-pop and is massively now into that K-pop world, this was so funny. This is like, has similar vibes to Way of the House Husband, where it's a big badass Yakuza. The big difference here is he is still actively in the Yakuza and is still an active member, whereas Tatsu is not. But it's got that kind of chaotic vibe when the Yakuza is dragged to a K-pop concert by the Yakuza's boss's daughter, sees the guys on stage, instantly falls in love with one of them. Not like romantically, but kind of in that, I love his dedication and he knows what it takes to be a man and I can learn things from him, and just starts this obsession with this K-pop idol. And it is so funny. It is so cute. If you are in any way, shape or form into K-pop and understand terms like biases, photo cards, all of that, you will have the best time. It's like 10 out of 10 for humor, and just, it doesn't even need plot. It's just so funny watching this big badass Yakuza who will happily kill someone without any compunctions, just suddenly being like, ah, and fangirling over an idol. So good. 10 out of 10. The next one is A Sign of Affection by Sue Morishita. I read the first one and I own the first one, and then I bought this for Ren as a gift because they mentioned that they wanted to read it, and I saw it and it wasn't a bad price, so I picked it up for them. So I've now read the first 3 volumes, and it's another one that's kind of suffering from, okay, some more stuff needs to happen to move this plot forward. It's also a little bit insta-lovey, which traditionally I'm not a big fan of. However, by the 3rd volume they have both kind of had the discussion and things seem to be maturing a little bit, not like in an explicit sexual way, but definitely in that kind of, we are going to enter in a relationship and be mature adults about it kind of way. And we now see Yuki, who is deaf. She is now starting to realize that the world is a lot bigger than she thought it was, and that she actually wants to see it with Itsuomi. Itsuomi has grown up living all around the world, and he's a big world traveler. He sees Yuki and helps her out when a tourist asks her for help one day. She obviously can't hear him to process what he's saying, and even if she could, she doesn't speak English. Itsuomi helps out. They then spark up a bit of a conversation that ultimately ends up with him asking her to teach him sign language, and they end up kind of falling into this relationship. She does fall first. She has a bit of a crush straight away. It takes him a little while to show that he may have feelings, so you spend the first kind of couple of volumes wondering if he does have feelings or if he is just using her for a gain, and that he maybe is aware of her feelings and is just kind of stringing her along. But it all gets resolved, and it is very sweet, very cute. The artwork and the designs of the characters are some of my favourite. I've rated it 10 out of 10 for the art style from the get-go. I really love the character designs. And I also am really interested in the way that they depict sign language, and they show some of the finger movements for sign language, and then there's explanations throughout the series of the effort that's gone into showing different forms of sign language and speaking and stuff, and it was so well done. I've been having a great time and I can't wait to continue. Next up we have a big one. It is one that I have said multiple times over many years that I am not interested in. I'm not going to read. I'm not going to invest my time because it is just too damn big and it's going to take too long, be too expensive. And yet we're now doing it. Thank you to the live action last year that reminded me how much I actually did enjoy the anime back when it first came out when I was about 10. Like, it came out over here in the, not over here, but it came out in English, I think, when I was about 11 or 12, and I remember watching it, and then it just got, I was like, oh, I'll wait for it to finish, and then I'll catch up. 20 years later, still going. But I did read up and I did see that it is now in its final arc and it is predicted to be finished next year. So I was like, right, seeing as it's not going to be another 20 years, I'm going to catch up. I'm going to do it. These are all from the library in Adelaide. I've also got volume 4 up. I've got 4, 7, 8, 11, 12. And we've got 5, 6, 9, and I think they've ordered up to like 15 or something for me. So basically once 5 and 6 arrive, I'll then have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I will be going off and doing a vlog where I'm just going to read a whole bunch of them back to back. And yeah, I've decided I'm going to stop and I'm going to read One Piece. And I bought the omnibus and I ended up really enjoying it, and I found it interesting how the story was different in the manga to the live action to the anime, and it was like fun sort of comparing all three and which one I preferred. But yeah, it's a fantastic cast of characters. Zoro, I remember being obsessed with. He was like one of my first sort of anime crushes when I was a kid. Still is, not gonna lie. Just, yeah, definitely. Also Buggy. Didn't know I had a thing for clowns. Apparently I do. That's gonna be, oh, I just realized it has the arcs on them. So I wanna try and get the entirety of the East Blue arc before I leave, so I can just binge read those back to back. That would be great. But I've decided next year that I'm going to read One Piece up to volume 60 if I can, to get to the time skip, and then I'll do the other half of the series the following year if I can. Spy Family is the next series that I have devoted quite a bit of time to. I'm now up to volume 9. I am loving this series more and more and more with every single volume. I have gone from liking Yor as a character to her now being my favourite character in the entire series. I love that we're starting to get more depth and we're getting more sort of background on her and to how she became an assassin in the first place. We're starting to get a few more of her morals as well. We're starting to see more bonding moments with the family where you can see them slowly beginning to become an actual family, and you can see that it's starting to affect Twilight, where he's now questioning, should I still be doing this because am I getting too attached? And just, there were some sweet, wholesome moments. They go on this boat and at one point Anya and Yor both fall asleep and Lloyd carries them both, and it was just heart-meltingly adorable. So if you don't know what Spy Family is, it's a spy, an assassin, and a telepath. Other than the telepath who is 6-year-old Anya, she knows that her papa is a spy and her mama is an assassin, and that they work for opposite countries that are at war with each other. They don't know that she knows that. They don't know that she's a telepath. They don't know each other's history. And it is hilariously chaotic watching them occasionally both on the same job, yet not bumping into each other, and just watching them navigate their jobs and their lives, trying to like not let each other find out the truth while Anya's going and they've all come together because one of Twilight, who's the spy, his mission is to try and find out about some stuff about the leader of one of the political parties, and the only way to do that is to get a child enrolled into the school that his son goes to, make friends with the son, or be enlisted on this scholarship program. And you know, that's the only way that he can make contact, so that's where the family comes in. And yeah, it's fake marriage, it's fake dating. Obviously, I'm gonna love it. And they've got a little kid that they've adopted, gonna love it even more. And then they get a dog. It's the trifecta of love. So yeah, absolutely fantastic series. Cannot wait to continue that. One that is currently actually on hiatus because the mangaka is unwell and we don't know when or even if it will ever come back is Brutal. This came to my attention when Jonah posted a video where he hauled this manga for himself for his birthday, and unfortunately it hasn't yet been officially translated into English. I did have to find an online translated version, but this follows an inspector who basically, when really bad guys manage to avoid justice and the law, he steps in. So he is a detective and he works for the police. He is also a serial killer who basically gives people what is coming to them in glorious ways. I did not expect to be so kind of satisfied by this one, but when you've got a guy who basically has created this rape den at a university, and then the detective steps in and kind of, you know, gives back to the guy with the aid of a crucifix. Not going to say where that crucifix goes. Yeah. He's also obsessed with the movie The Exorcist and like the devil and stuff like that. So like with that particular one, that crucifix and the person's body 666 times. Just saying. It's gratifying. It's also extraordinarily graphic. And it has the correct name of being brutal, but I feel like there wasn't a moment where I was like, okay, this is going too far. Every single person, I was just like, you deserve everything you are getting right now. But again, it was one where I was like, okay, we've had 5 volumes of this now, and it's basically just repeating the same thing over and over. I now want some more from the actual character and a little bit more in terms of a storyline. And like, you know, we still don't know why he started doing it. We don't understand his history. We don't know anything much about him as a character. So it is definitely an interesting one. Was I entertained? Yes. Was I also disturbed? Yes. Do I recommend it? Yes. And then the final category for this video, we have the standalone. So obviously, as the name suggests, there's only one. There are no more that I know of. The first of these is Sensory Life on the Spectrum. This is a comics anthology written by autistic authors and talks about the autistic experience. So each of the artists that contributed to this is autistic, and there's a wide range, as it says, life on the spectrum. So there is a spectrum of tales, experiences. Some of them are more personal and are about what it's like to have autism. Some are more anecdotal and are just sort of explaining what autism is or what certain things regarding autism are. But all of them were really well done. All of them give that person's experience and gives a perspective or understanding of autism. And as someone who at the start of this year was questioning their own autism, it was very eye-opening, not only in making me realize that yes, I do have a lot of autistic traits and yes, I am autistic, but also helping me to see how my autism differs to other people's. 5 stars, absolutely incredible. Definitely 100% recommend whether you are autistic or not, because I think it's also educational even if you aren't autistic. And then my final one for this video, I think, yes, is one that I remember I started reading on Webtoons a couple of years ago, back when I was reading Lore Olympus and Heartstopper. I tried out a few more. This was one that I tried out. I remember enjoying it, but I just didn't keep up with it. And then when I saw it in the library, I didn't realize that they'd bought out the a bound version. And this is Let's Play. I can't remember the author name. It will be here. And this one follows a young woman who dreams of being a video game creator. Best way to do it is to create your game, upload it onto this specific website, and when it's rated highly enough, it then can be picked up by professionals, and it's basically the best way to get your foot in the door and get into the game industry. Unfortunately for her, when she launches her game, while it does really well to begin with, a popular it's their equivalent of YouTube, but a popular sort of YouTuber plays her video on a live, doesn't properly follow the instructions and doesn't fully understand the concept of the game, and as a result he ends up giving it a really bad rating. And because he has like millions of followers, including her, who was his fan, the game ends up being slammed by his subscribers, and she ends up being blacklisted and her access to the site is banned, effectively destroying her dreams. She then discovers that she's getting a new neighbour, and on moving day, it's him. And you can imagine that that leads to some tensions and not great emotions going. And I ended up really enjoying this and giving it 5 stars, and I've now gone back onto Webtoons to continue reading it. I really loved the way that they wrote the dynamics with them. The story was just funny and effortlessly funny. There was one bit where in one day 2 guys end up shirtless in front of her, and she's like, what is this? A graphic novel designed to try and engage women into reading it? Like, you know, it was just so funny and taking and light-hearted, but also had these other themes and stuff going on. I really like the dynamic between the 2 main characters. I also love that she's part of an online RPG game and has an online guild that they meet up in person, and everyone in the guild is fantastic. I also love that when they first meet up, it gives you like the character and then who they play in the game and then their player statistics. There was a few good bits of rep in there as well. One of the characters in the guild is deaf and communicates through like a text-to-speak phone, and she was also savage. So yeah, I had a fantastic time with this, and it's definitely got that enemies to lovers kind of vibe going on. We all know I love that so much. And yeah, I can't wait to see how that's going to continue to develop. So those are the highlights of my graphic novels and manga reading of the year. There were many lowlights too, but I've decided to not talk about those because I want to focus on the good. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. Were they also a favourite? And if none of these were in your list for this year, let me know what some of your favourites have been for 2024, and are there any you are looking forward to in 2025? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe. Don't forget to check out my Patreon, which is linked below, and I will be returning full force 2 in January. And until next time, bye!